Welcome to the Rising for Women podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Merlo-Booth, and I believe the world will be changed for women when we change how we walk in it. So each week, we're going to have hard conversations. We're going to explore new options. Some of them are going to be hard options, and we're going to have some real, straight talk. We're going to do that because I have faith that women can handle it. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Rising podcast for women. So glad to have you guys here. Joining the three of us, Dee Marcotte, Arlene Newman, and myself. Today's topic is we're going to look at what women can learn from watching the vice presidential debates, debate and the presidential debate. What, as women, did we see? What struck us? And what can we learn from it? We're doing something a little different today. Often, Dee, Arlene, and I will talk a little bit beforehand and kind of have a sense of where we're going. And I purposefully have asked us not to. Because I want to just get raw feedback on what we all thought from that debate from a woman's perspective. And I'm sure many women out there had quite a few different reactions. And so let's dive in. Let's dive in. What did you guys notice? What struck you about this debate? Obviously, we have the very first vice presidential candidate who is a Black woman. And I think that showed to be very interesting from a female perspective. And so let's talk about it. What did you notice? What struck you? What didn't strike you?
Well, I thought it was interesting, just the part that you just said was that the very first thing Kamala Harris did was give her pedigree. I did this and I did this and I did this and I've been this and I didn't hear Pence doing that. It was, like, okay, I have to prove first that as an African American and a woman, first I have to put out there that I am more than qualified.
Interesting. I didn't think she did that the first thing, but I did see, like, she did do that at one place. Maybe it was the first thing.
It was very early on.
Very early on. Mm-hmm. And I remember because she kept listing things, and I was like, oh my gosh, I don't care, move.
Right. Yeah, like, okay, you're there. Like,
right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that speaks to women of all ages, where instead of just owning our worth, we are forever trying to prove our worth. So it's like when she was doing that and going on and on about all her credentials, it was like, listen, America, I've earned my way here. Let me prove it. Let me show it to you. And hey, you don't have to prove it to us. You're there. You have earned it. Land. Although, here's the spin. Here's the crazy place that she's in and women are in. Because ideally, and we talk about a grounded, powerful strength, the grounded, powerful strength is stop trying to prove it. Step in, own it, right? And yet, you have the vice president, a white man, very privileged. He enters that, and he is given, everybody already has given him respect. He owns it. He doesn't have to do anything for it. And so had she not done that, what would have happened? How serious do people take her or not take her? I don't know. This is the quandary that I think women are always fighting for. If I don't prove it to you, then you're not going to see it or you're not going to know it. And so is it just better for me to start proving it and then we can go backwards? I don't know. I mean, I actually have an opinion on that, but I think that's what women struggle with.
Well, I think given your reaction, we do know the answer to that. It's a turnoff. When you have to show and prove person on the other side is going, all right, get over it already, get on. It's not, it doesn't really do what you want it to do. I think showing up, owning it is much more powerful than reciting your pedigree. Anybody can look that up.
Sorry. The other part of that, though, was he continually did what I think men tend to do to women. Well, you have the right to your opinion. It's kind of like a little pat on the head. And it's kind of like as if your opinion doesn't mean anything. So if she hadn't given the pedigree, then, oh, well, that's just what you think, and that doesn't count. So I don't know. I think it's a tricky place.
I think, yeah, so much of what we're going to say today is we're in a tricky place. I think that the reality, the reality is that we are. I'm also very aware that if we keep playing by old rules, we're going to forever stay in this tricky place. And I'm tired of this tricky place, frankly. And so there were other things that I saw. I felt like she was like this racehorse who had 300 pounds of weight on each of her hoofs and she couldn't quite, go for it. Right. And those 300-pound weights are, don't be an angry Black woman. Don't be a bitch. Don't be a know-it-all. Don't don't interrupt. Don't be too forceful. There's all these things that he did not have. He did not have, right? If he had anything, it was don't be as bad as Trump. That was the only thing, right? And I think that it showed. She was given so many opportunities, to really land on, when they talked about, I think one of the questions was, you were in a Rose Garden ceremony with no mask. The president has tested positive. 34 people in the White House have the coronavirus now. And she didn't go after that. She just, a couple times she just kept repeating that, you knew in January and you didn't tell us. But how about you had children, your, Supreme Court Justice nominee had 6 or 7 of her kids there with no masks. Mr. Vice President, you are running this task force. Did you have a mask on? You continued, you didn't want to just come at it more. But I felt like she was so in a straitjacket around, and I'm sure that she was advised by this, you just can't mess this up. You can't mess it up. So don't come out too hard. Don't come out too mean, no anger, right?
Know your place.
Know your place and don't mess it up for, So I think that really crippled her.
I think the moderator did not help. I just want to bring that in. The moderator, being a woman, was also way too accommodating with all of her thank yous. I counted one time 5 thank yous. 5 thank yous to him, rather than Mr. Vice President, your time is up. Yes. There was no sense of her taking charge. It was infuriating.
I'm sorry. There was one time when he says, "No, I have to speak to this," and I'm like, "Why isn't she saying no?"
That's exactly.
No.
And then one more thing
and Kamala wasn't saying, "Oh, wait a minute, hold on." I mean, she did say a couple times, "I want equal," but she did equal time. But she didn't say, "Susan, as the moderator, what are you doing?"
Exactly.
Well, I've actually heard about that. Once you go after the moderator, you've lost.
Oh, really?
Which is a very interesting thing. Because part of it is you don't want to get them to save you. You don't want to be a victim, right? However, it drove me crazy. Arlene, you're like when she kept saying, "Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Thank you, Mr. Vice President." I'm like, oh dear Lord. I felt like patriarchy was so in that room and every woman was watching, being like, oh, I've been there. Oh, I know this. I know this, right? And it was so hard to watch. It was very, very hard to watch. And there were a couple times when he interrupted Kamala. First off, I thought she did some great moves, right? She really did. There were a couple times when she said, I'm speaking, right?
Right.
Yes.
And I think she said, stop interrupting Mr. Vice President or something. And those moves were great. If you allow me to finish talking, we can have a conversation on this, right?
That was a good line.
And those were great. And there were a couple times when he interrupted her. She was talking, he interrupted, she said, I'm speaking, he kept talking, and then she looked at him like she was totally interested, like she just like let him go for another like minute or two. And I was like, this is yeah,
Why are you doing that?
Why are you doing that?
Why are you right?
Yeah, I see this with women all the time, and they'll like ask their partners or somebody to stop doing something, and then when the person doesn't stop doing it, they're like, oh well, he's not going to listen. Okay.
So are you saying that we just give up? We just give up. We give up. I mean, our tendency, our pattern is to just give up
because we don't want to be a bitch.
Or we feel helpless. Or we feel helpless and hopeless, and we feel like, what's the point?
What's the point?
Nothing's going to change. We might as well just.
He's going to get too mad. Yeah.
Whatever. However, I mean, we can probably interview 100 women and get 100 different ways that they think about it. But the bottom line is that we give up. We don't know how to fight in a productive way.
Right.
And I want to get this one thing out because it drove me crazy when the moderator, the one time she confronted Kamala, and she did not confront him once. Do you remember the time when she said, "You've already talked about this"? Either one of you remember that? What was the? Yes, you've already talked about that. We're moving on. I was furious. Because she never said anything to him about what he was doing. Right. It was true. She had already mentioned it. He was just spinning and spinning and spinning. She never said anything to him about any of his behavior. It was infuriating. It was like, okay, it's easier to kind of confront her and gang up on her. It made my blood boil.
Yeah. And when she said to him, and these are things that, his entitlement and his privilege to show up however he wants was really hard to watch. Like, and what I would say is she should have had that same right. It's like, I didn't think that he was over the top. President Trump was really over the top and rude and right. But when the moderator said, you have 15 seconds, first off, nobody's going to do 15 seconds, right? But he said, I want to go back and address. And she said, we're moving on. We need to move on. And he's like, I don't care. I want to go on.
That's right.
And
yes.
He's like, all right, 15 seconds. He's like, no, I need a minute.
Right.
And I was like, she could never have said that. Like, it's just, without people, going after her and saying, that all the things that they say about women, it's really like she had her wings clipped, and she's got to pretend like she's okay. She's got to pretend like she's not angry. Smile at him.
Oh, smile and smile and smile. I was like, wipe that smile off your face. Yeah. Like, there were times that it's kind of like, this is not a time to be smiling. I didn't see him smile at her particularly. Right. It was just kind of, but she was like smiling constantly. And I'm like, at least have a neutral face, because that smile is like, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. Yeah. Which
I think it was a passive aggressive smile. I think she really probably wanted to be very aggressive, and she couldn't, so she smiled. Like it's doing something rather than doing nothing.
Well, and then Fox News says, oh, she's smirking and condescending. She can't win.
No. I think that's the point. She can't win. And I think that's the point for women, is that, you know, we say come at it with a grounded, powerful strength and all that sort of stuff. And it's kind of like, yes, we're talking about blazing the trail.
Yes.
Because if you don't say anything, it's kind of like, well, it's your own fault that you're unhappy or this or the other thing. And if you do say something, then you're a bitch. And
Right.
worse, that's certainly Trump has called a variety of women around him. You know, and so it's kind of like, at some point we're going to have to say, we just have to blaze the trail and know that there's no winning.
Exactly. Because if you looked at the, you know, different, you know, tweets and, you know, social media, you know, you had some that were like, you know, I'm speaking, Mr. Vice President, and they were like, way to go. And, you know, and you had others, and you were going to get it from either side. You were like, you will never, ever, ever please everybody. And there are going to be people who are psyched about what you did, and there are going to be people who are not psyched. One of the things that was very interesting is I was reading some of the tweets from women, and more. So there's a South Dakota governor, Kristi Noem, who's a Republican, and she says her persona is off. She was smug and condescending. Megyn Kelly tweets, don't smirk, don't shake your head, don't smile mockingly, wait. If that is not patriarchy on steroids, right? Don't smile, don't get angry.
God.
You just patiently wait for the man to finish talking, while he interrupts you incessantly, right?
And pays no attention to what the boundaries are supposed to be.
None.
About how long to talk or not, or, you know, because like the moderator, one point she said, look, your party's agreed to this, like, so just do it. Not that it made any difference. Right after that, he paid no attention again. So
Well, how do you think she could have handled it differently, Kamala?
So here's
given the context.
Yeah, that's a great question. And this podcast is really about, we have to start changing the tides, right? So the reason why that question is so great is because you have, you know, you're looking at, there's risk. So what she did kept her in a place where she didn't hurt this in any way, right? She didn't really help it. She didn't hurt it. You know, Biden is still ahead by a few points, and neither one of them helped or hurt their side, right? Which is where she needed to be. And what I believe and what this podcast is all about, and what we keep saying, is we have to blaze a trail. And so a grounded, powerful strength, what that could have looked like is she could have done a couple of the things that she did, which I thought she did great. I'm speaking, Mr. Vice President, right? Take away the smiles. Stop smiling when you're not happy. And the next point, the next time he did it, she could have said, you're interrupting me again, right? And by the third time, what she could have said is, you know what, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to address the pink elephant in the room that we're always told not to address. But I know that women all over this nation are watching right now, and they know it to their bones. Right now, Mr. Vice President has interrupted me several times. He's going to do this on and on and on for most of the night. And my wings are clipped a little bit here because I can't look like an angry Black woman. And I can't look like, you know, a bitchy woman. And so my wings are clipped. And what we do so often is we entitle the men to interrupt us, and we tell the women that they need to stand down. Mr. Vice President, I am not going to stand down on behalf of all the women in our nation.
Wow, wouldn't that have been fantastic?
Wouldn't that have been cool? Really?
Now, what could have happened though? I don't know what the fallout of that would have been, right? My guess is you would have had the Democrats who would have been like, go, go, go. And you would have had the Republicans. She's an angry Black woman who she's right. But that's what we're talking about. A grounded, powerful strength, that's what it looks like, right? You ramp up, not in volume. You ramp up your message. You like at first you're like, you're first off, and all of those are respectful, by the way. All of those are respectful. People are gonna, if she said like what I just said, people were gonna come in and they're gonna say, did you see how rude she was? Did you see how angry she was? here's the thing about that, women. People are going to judge you all the time, right? And they have their own lenses. It's about where they come from. It's their family of origin. It's about their level of comfort with anger and whatever.
Patriarchy.
Yeah, it's about patriarchy, misogyny, social messaging. And so what you have to pay attention to is you just make sure on your end that you're clean. My energy is clean. I'm not coming at this contemptuously. I'm not trying to shame him. I'm not trying to go one up. I'm clean. Now, if he thinks I'm any of those things or other people think them, I don't have control over there. I only have control over me right here. And that I would have loved to have seen, especially now in this environment. It's more and more out there. We have Me Too. We got women talking all the time about how we're shut down, and we talk about mansplaining and all this stuff. It would have been a perfect, forum to start doing this now. And if not in the vice presidential candidate, I would love to see women doing this in their offices, doing this in their homes, doing this on the street, doing this in government.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was, for me, it was the sort of thing of like the idea of it, her wings were clipped, it's that sort of idea of, I have to make sure everybody likes me.
Yes.
And I think that we do that all the time as women, like, oh, you don't like me, so I have to smile more. I have to say I'm sorry or thank you when I don't mean thank you, or any of these things that we do when, like you said, when we don't really mean them.
Right.
Like to smile when this isn't something to smile at. Like
right.
It really deteriorates not only that person, but for all of women.
And it comes off disingenuine because it is.
Right.
You're
well, except that it's automatic pilot. I think when we're automatic pilot, that's where we go. So we lose our center and we lose our connection with how we really feel. And when we go on automatic pilot, that's how we behave.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Be nice, be accommodating, be pleasing, get them to like you, look sweet, look nice. This is the brilliance of Trump. So Trump, exactly what we're talking about right now about likability. Trump says she was terrible. I don't think you can get worse, and totally unlikable. Chuck Grassley, he tweets, the winner is usually the one you would want to have dinner with. I think Pence would get the invitation. Most likable.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm.
They're brilliant, right? They want it because women is she likable? Is she not likable? And that gets all women into this place of, oh, I want them to like me. I better be nice. I better. Mm-hmm. Women.
It's like Sally Field, right? Sally Field. Oh, she likes me or he likes me. Do you remember that whole thing?
No.
Oh my God. I'm timing myself. But I think when she won the Oscar, she went on stage and she said, oh, they like me, they really like me. And it was a joke for decades about her.
Oh, terrible.
But she put it out there. That's how she felt, and that is how women feel.
Yeah. And it puts us in a straitjacket. Mm-hmm. And if we want it to be different, we have to blaze a trail. And the more of us who do it, the bigger the trail and the less difficult it's going to be. And this happens in the minutia. How many women are in their offices and somebody is sexually harassing them and they laugh, they smirk, they smile, right? Somebody makes some sex joke or about their body or about, right? And they're like, all the time. And when you do that, you just grow the beast in the other people. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but in corporate America, it's like this thing that, so let's say somebody's bullying you in a meeting in front of everybody. It's the unspoken rule is that you talk to them outside of the meeting one-on-one. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Women, don't ever do that. Don't do that. And I know like corporate America is going to come down on me on this, but listen, you have a bully in a meeting who is shaming you or putting you down or, they did it in public, you address it in public.
Exactly.
And everybody at that table all of the, you know, good guys and women, men and women, they should be backing you up, because no bully stops from some other people being nice to them. That will never stop a bully, ever, ever, ever. You can't nice a bully into being nice. You won't do it.
Well, that was Susan's thank yous, right? He was bullying his way into her time, and she was being very nice.
Right.
Well, also saying,
and he walked right over her.
I'm sorry,
Completely.
Mr. Vice President. I'm sorry the time is up. It's like, don't be sorry. That's what you're supposed to be doing.
Right.
You know? But I think that is what we do.
Right. And they agreed to it.
Sorry, you know.
Yes. Yes.
For something that isn't even mine to be sorry for.
But she also didn't want to come across as a bitch.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't want to come across as an angry woman. She didn't want to, you know, she just wanted, can we all play nice?
Right.
Can we play nice, please? Right? And listen, that's all well and good when people are playing nice.
Right.
When they're not.
When everybody's agreed.
When everybody, right. When they're not, that will not work. If somebody's bulldozing you, they're going to continue to bulldoze you. And if you keep allowing it, you're complicit in it. I don't know what to say, right? Mm-hmm. And this plays out with women everywhere. It's when they're dating and a guy is all handsy on them and, you know, and they're like, you know, groping them, the women's like, come on, I don't know. Like, and when they're, you know, in their homes and their husbands snap at them, or they're, you know, at a table and they're, you know, some guy jokes and puts them down and shames them, and they say, you're too sensitive, that's a stupid thing you said. It's everywhere. And women just, more times than not, they shut down. They either silence or they giggle or they go along with it. All those things we have to clean up. And we have the, you know, a woman who is running for the vice president of the United States, and we're watching her do that because she knows how high the stakes are, and that's what she's been trained to do. And we need to start changing the tides. We need to change the tides, or we're all gonna in trouble.
I think we have to talk a little bit about what is getting in our way. You know, what are some of the things that emotionally stop us from having a more solid, grounded voice? Because we could be feeling all of those things, but we get scared. We get intimidated. We get scared. We get shamed. Yeah. We don't know what it sounds like to be powerful and direct.
Right. We don't.
Without being bitchy and angry and just being labeled and therefore dismissed. We don't know how to do it. And I think we need to get clear on what that sounds like and what that looks like.
Yeah. I think that's so true. There are very few role models, male or female, by the way, male or female.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
When it comes to anger, women historically have looked to men, and then they start, you know, trying to, okay, this is how I stand up for myself. I don't want men or women bullying. I don't want men or women moving in power over other people. So looking to men for anger is not going to help us at all, right? We don't want to become the bullies of yesterday or today, right? I also think that our lens is screwed up. So we judge women who are, you know, when women do step up and they do it cleanly, we judge them as angry. Like, I thought there were several moves that she made that were very clean and were not angry. When she said, you know, I'm speaking, Mr. Vice President, that was very clean. That wasn't anger. There was nothing about that. And people are calling it condescending. And so you have to watch when other women, if you see a woman standing up for herself, back her. If you see her doing it well, when you walk away, you say to her, wow, that was really cool to watch. I just want you to know you came in with such strength, but you also were like super grounded in that. Like, that was cool to see. Like, and as ourselves, we have to start feeling a little bit, we got to start tuning into our energy, because when we're feeling contempt and rage, we have to know how do we sound and feel when we come in clean? How do we sound and feel when we come in with contempt, so that we can start trusting ourselves a little bit more? I know there are, plenty of times when I'm coming in too hot, and I can feel it. And I also know there are plenty of times when I'm coming in very grounded, and others might say I'm hot, but I got to learn to trust myself. But I have to be an accurate, I have to be a humble observer. So that's one of the things I would say.
I think another thing that Arlene, you said, which I think is definitely true. I mean, I know it can happen to me pretty easily, where because we've grown up in this is how you are, this is how you make everybody happy, this is how you don't start an argument, this is how you're not a bitch, that then when it's happening, it's hard to know it's happening because it feels so familiar.
Yeah.
So I think just, sort of educating ourselves on like what really is respectful behavior from another person, what is really bullying or dismissing or that sort of stuff, like
Or
really
intimidating. I think intimidation plays a huge role in relationships.
that very quietly.
Let's, you know what, I think that's a great point. Let's kind of go through these a little bit. So let's talk about, basic, what is okay behavior, what's not okay behavior, what does intimidation look like, what does bullying look like, what does disrespect look like, what should be, because in our society, we normalize so much that we don't even know what's okay and what's not okay anymore. So, one of the things that I say is, there are 3 basic rules of engagement for anybody in your life, a stranger or somebody close. And those basic rules of engagement is nobody in your life can be emotionally abusive to you, which means they can't call you names, they can't tell you you're stupid, they can't speak to you with contempt. Nobody in your life can be physically abusive, which means they can't threaten you, they can't grab you, they can't push you, they can't do any of that in anger. They can't throw something at you. They can't punch a wall near you, any of that. And nobody in your life can treat you with disrespect. Disrespect means that they can't dismiss you. So you say, hey, I'm a little worried about that. Oh, that's stupid. Don't be worried. That's dismissiveness. Hey, I don't like how you talk to me. And they say, oh, you're too sensitive. That's dismissive, right? So let's kind of go into those a little bit more. Let's talk about, so what's emotional abuse? What is that? What is intimidation you just talked about? And what's kind of, disrespect? Just to give them, like, I don't know, a list of 10 each, to just, so women know, oh, that happened. That's not okay.
What we have called attacking from the victim role can be very intimidating. Like, you did this to me, very guilt-provoking, very intimidating.
Okay, let's use an example, because people might be like, what do you mean you did this to me? What is that? Like, give me an example of what you did.
Okay, let me see if I can come up with one quickly.
You called me out in front of my friends. Let's say we were at a party with friends and you called me out about, I don't know, how I yelled at the kids. And then they can say, don't you ever do that.
I had something a little bit more insidious in mind. Like, you should have known that would upset me. You should have never have done that, because you knew that would really upset me.
Yep.
Like, you're bringing up that topic, or you're not being there when I expected you to. You knew that was gonna hurt my feelings. You knew that would make me feel really bad, and you did it anyway. that
Or
kind of
even more.
guilt-provoking, you failed my expectations, and therefore you are to blame.
That's guilt. I'm glad you just said that's guilt inducing, because I wouldn't put that as intimidating, right?
Well, I think guilt-inducing is very intimidating. I think you get intimidated when you start to feel guilty about what you think and what you feel and what you do.
That's interesting. I see intimidation like around anger and fear and scared, guilt, feeling guilty. And I can see you start questioning yourself and you start thinking, oh no, what did I do? But not from they're not like, intimidation to me is like, you better back off now, or you're not going to like
Right.
where it goes. It's
Right.
like,
You're talking about more aggressive, but I'm talking about the more kind of passive aggressive way where you start to question yourself. I'm talking about internal intimidation, when a person makes you feel that what you've done is bad and wrong.
yeah.
And you shut down because you feel like your actions are not legitimate.
Right.
So that's how I'm thinking about it.
Okay.
Yeah, I tend to think about it more like there's a look, like
Yeah.
it's, so you say something in front of the friends and there's the look.
Right.
That's like, how dare you?
Yeah.
Did
Yeah.
that, or that kind of thing. So I think it can be aggressive but quiet.
Right.
Intimidation, as well as we're in a room and there's only one door and you stand in it while we're having an argument.
And I'm not letting you pass that door. Yeah, intimidation is about threats. There's a threat there. It's not there's this something that, you start getting a little nervous and shaky. You're scared. You start thinking, where is this going to go? What's going to happen? So that's what I would put intimidation. Guilting somebody into doing something, or not even into doing something, but like you said, guilting somebody into like
Questioning
doubting
themselves.
themselves. Yeah. That's so hard, because that happens all the time. And what's so hard about that is you get thrown, you get shaken a little bit, and then you start
That's
like,
exactly right. That's why I'm calling it intimidation, because you've lost your center.
yeah, I'd like to not call it intimidation. Can we?
Okay.
Just because
Yeah,
I
we
feel
can
like
call it something else.
I just feel like people often equate intimidation with anger or a threat or fear. So I'd like to differentiate this just a little bit. So there's that emotional piece. There's a lot of underhanded emotional stuff that can go on. And how can they recognize it? Because sometimes it's not so clear, but you'll have that ick feeling. You'll have something that's like, I don't know. It starts to shake you a little bit. Like, what just happened there? Or, oh shoot. And you might start to shrink. You might start to feel a little shame, right?
I think you get the, oh, what did I do wrong?
Yes. Yep. Great. What did I do wrong? So those are all warning flags.
Right.
And let's talk a little bit. So let's talk a little bit about bullying, straightforward bullying. What are some bullying behaviors that people, even if they don't think it's bullying, let's go to easy ones, straightforward, clear shot bullying. So threats. Anybody threatens you, that's bullying. Anybody who is coming at you with toxic energy, like yelling, screaming, swearing, raging, that's like verbally abusive, and that can be bullying.
I think the idea of, one of the things I hear with some of my clients is the idea of that generally the woman says no, or I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And then, so there's the bullying of like, well, how about if we do this? Well, what about this? Well, what about now? So it's not taking the no for the answer. So I just keep pounding on you until you finally just say,
Until
okay.
you give in.
Mhm.
I will say women can get into that too. Women can do that too. They don't take no for an answer. So women, if you're paying attention, if you tend to push and push, come on, come on, come on, why don't you do, and you don't take no for an answer, that's bullying. It doesn't sound as loud. And, you know, men can do it too, not as loud. And it's still, you don't take the no and the other person feels like they're just not going to be heard.
Mhm.
Right. And then just in general, things that we normalize too much. We normalize name calling. We normalize snapping. We think everybody fights, everybody yells. That is not okay in a relationship. I don't, whether it's from a parent or a child, I mean, a parent or a lover or a friend or a coworker or a boss.
Mhm.
Stop normalizing that. That's not okay. So if somebody's yelling at you, they're calling you names, they're, you know, shaming you, like, oh, really? You didn't know that? God, everybody knows that. How does your brain work? That's shaming. That's not okay. And I wouldn't say any, you got to be careful about this, but one of the clues is if the hair on the back of your neck goes up and it doesn't feel right, then it probably isn't, right? It probably isn't. And the only reason why I hesitated a little bit on that is sometimes people can have like a history where they're super sensitive about something, and you got to slow that down to watch. You got to, you know, like if you, I don't know, I'm trying to think of an example.
Well, I think one of the things though that you talked about was like what's there's a difference between ooh that didn't feel okay and you know, and I think that's a little bit of that difference of the hair raises on the back of your neck, but it's kind of like if you go into complete collapse or complete, you know, you start yelling or whatever,
Yeah.
then that, you know, then maybe you're, you know, that might show that maybe there's something off with that, or if it happens constantly. But I also think that if you just have a, like, often I think for women, it's, I don't know what's wrong, so I can't say anything.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing I want to say about that is that I think women are so used to doubting themselves and questioning themselves, so that when they do get intimidated in a way that makes them doubt themselves, they just take it as it really is my fault. They don't really identify that as something that's being induced in them. They just take it on. They think that it's really about them.
Yeah.
They don't see that it's something that is actually happening outside of them, and they are being made to feel that way.
So what's so hard about that is first them recognizing it.
Yep.
They can't
And not believing this, the beginning to identify that self-doubt is one of the ways that we've been conditioned to stay small.
Right.
And not to trust ourselves.
Yeah. So what would you say that they can do to start shifting that?
But I always say, become aware of that voice in your head where you start to question yourself, blame yourself, doubt yourself. Start to be aware that is a very consistent, if it's very consistent, be aware of it. Notice how you live with that voice and you believe that voice and you don't challenge that voice or question that voice. Yeah. First, the one in your head.
And then I love that. And then what can help many women is in the moment, you may not be able to figure it out. Go back, find some space a day later, a night, you know, later that night, and then really look, wait a second, was I to blame for that? And you know, one of the things we've said this many times on this podcast, the rule for blame is you are only to blame for the behavior you did. You don't cause someone else's behavior. So if, you know, earlier Arlene was, you know, talking about they guilt you into feeling bad, and then you're like, oh, maybe what I did wasn't okay, or maybe when I said that I did set him off. You don't set anybody off. You don't make them do anything. So first tune in and try to figure out, you know, just what Arlene was saying. And then, you know, if you can't figure it out in the moment when something's happening, go back and try to do it. And if it really wasn't your fault, you want to come back and be like, listen, I'm not taking ownership for that. I want you to know that. You know, I may have forgotten to bring the milk home, but that in no way made you yell, and nor did that justify your snapping at me. That's not okay for me. You know, you don't have to do it in the
That's
moment.
so good.
Yeah.
That sounds so good. And again, I know we've said this in the past, and it bears repeating. You can always go back.
You can always,
You know, if you always go back, you can always say, you know, that thing that happened, this is how I really think about it and feel about it.
right.
You don't have to stop yourself by saying, oh, well, I missed my opportunity. No, there is no such thing.
Right. Right. You only miss the opportunity if you never go back and you never address it.
That's right.
Right.
Can I bring up a different way of bullying? And I don't know if it's bullying or intimidation or the emotional piece. I don't know.
But it's not okay.
It's not okay. I don't know what to call it.
Yeah.
But it's the place where, and again, women can do this too, but I have to say I hear men do it more, where it's with the children, you know, at dinner or this or the other. Oh, your mommy's just deciding to be mad. Oh, your mommy won't listen to me. Oh, like, so they you know, so they're being indirect and they're saying it to the kid. They're roping the kid into something that's adult, which is very inappropriate. But then I think the woman gets really like, oh my God, they're talking about the kids. And so then they just try to get it to stop.
Yeah.
You know?
That is not okay.
It is not okay.
It's just not okay. And here's the thing with things that are not okay. The first time, what you can do, if you don't want to say it in the moment or you don't want to say it in front of the kids, later you can say, hey, listen, I don't like what happened at the dinner table. I don't want you telling the kids, oh, mommy said I don't want you doing that, right? So I'm asking you not to do that again, right? And if your partner's like, oh, I'm really sorry, you're right, I didn't think about it, you're good. And then, you know, see if they don't do it again. If he is or she is being like, oh, well, you were, and you know what, if you don't do that, then I won't have to do it, but if you do that, I'm going to do it again, right? Then you have to move up a level. So now it's not just making requests. Now it's, you're going to set a limit. You're going to say, listen, I'm going to be very clear with you. That behavior is not okay. If you do it again in front of the children, I absolutely will ask the children to leave and I will call you out in front of them, right? That is not okay. Or I will call you out right in front of the children and I will explain to the children how what you're doing is not okay. So we can, you know, like, I just think women have to start being more and more backing up their words with their actions, right? Somebody, you're at an office party and, you know, you got a couple guys who are talking about their sexcapades and all the women are laughing, but they're uncomfortably laughing. You can like feel it. You know, you need say to them, hey, you know what, guys? First off, what you're doing is really disrespectful to everybody at the table. And this conversation is not okay. I don't want to hear it at work. Right? And then the other women should be like, I'm so glad you said that. Yes, Tom, don't talk about it like that. It's not, first off, it's not mixed company talk. And second off, it's inappropriate. I don't want to hear about your sexcapades. If they directly say something to you and they're like sexually harassing you and under the guise of a joke, you want to directly say that is sexual harassment. If you say one more thing, you do that again, I want you to know I'm going to report it. And if I hear you or see you do that with anybody in front of me, I will absolutely report you. Am I clear with that? And then if they do it, you report. We need women, and then we need the women around them being like, yes. And if I see you do it too, I'm going to report you as well. And if you say that to me, and there's strength in numbers. And ideally, if there are 4 women around the table, we want at least 3 of them backing each other up, at least 3, right? So start paying attention to that. Start paying attention to how you go along, how you shrink, how you might let one woman be the spokesperson and then she gets the bad rap. and start noticing how you either don't speak up, or you come in, you wait, and then you blow up. Like, really start watching how you're showing up, because again, we want to be trailblazers, and this is a whole new trail, and we need as many women to help as we can.
Mm-hmm.
And don't ever fool yourself into thinking that the stakes are too high, because I think the stakes are very high right now. Don't think that, you know, your boss won't like it, or you're going to screw up a promotion or whatever. That's more important than you having your voice, because that's going to carry you into your life.
Love that. And that's tricky. That goes back to
Very tricky. It's very tricky.
That's right.
Back to the tricky, right?
So let's, I love that you said that. Let's talk about that for just a moment. Women, we know what we are asking. We get it. We understand that we are asking you to do all the things that for generations and years you would get in trouble for doing. And we can't say that you stepping in with a grounded, powerful strength is not going to get you in trouble. What we can say is not stepping in with a grounded, powerful strength is going to hurt you. It's going to hurt all women. And the only way we can turn the tides is to start stepping in the world differently. And there's risk in that. What I will say, in my practice, what I see is that when women stand up, the men often step up, right? I've had so many men in my practice say, I'm so much more attracted to her now that she doesn't take my shit than I was before. And the women are like, what? You're just saying that. And I've heard it from so many.
I believe it. I completely believe it.
Yeah.
And to add to that is that even though it is risky, and you may piss off your boss. You may, and you may not get that promotion, but what that will give you in terms of self-confidence and self-esteem, you're going to take that to your next job or your next boss, and nobody can take that away from you. Yeah. So it may be a loss in the short run, but the dividends are huge for you personally.
Love that. Mm-hmm. That's such an important message.
I so believe that. It takes courage. It definitely takes courage. You have to see beyond like what's right in front of you. You have to see the big picture, and you have to see what it does for you to have your voice, and not let yourself get stepped on.
You know what would have been really interesting? Like we talked about, what could Kamala have said had she said what I said she should said, and then the moderator backed her up and said, I am so glad you said that.
Absolutely. I was thinking about, like, how could the two women have really stood up together?
That would have been
That would have been so awesome. Mm-hmm.
That's why I was so furious when Susan turned to Kamala and made that statement. I thought it was really, like, she took her frustrations out on her, and that really infuriated me.
When women have a choice between backing men or backing women, they're going to back the men because they want to be liked. It's our instinct. We got to stop and slow down that instinct, because every time we do that, we hurt the women. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying don't back a woman who's like being out of control or who's off. Mm-hmm. I'm not talking about that. Nobody should be backing men or women who are off. But when they're not, and you're thinking, oh, I want him to like me, even though he's out of line with her, you got to know that pull to want to do that, and take a deep breath and slow down and stand behind her. He's being a jerk. We just have to slow that down. And that's hard. That's a hard move. And that's going to change the tides, especially the more women who do it time and time again, and the more we back each other up.
So I want to just add one more thing. When you said that women will not do it because they want to be liked, I think that's one piece of it. But I think there's another more primal piece that we have been living with for so many centuries, where we feel our security and safety and survival depends on the men.
Yeah.
And I think when that gets triggered, we then freeze. We freeze.
Yeah.
And we have to start being aware of that and not to let that rule take over.
Exactly, because we freeze, but that freeze can just be for a moment. It
Yes,
can just be for a moment. Recognize the freeze and be like, ah, that's what's happening. All right, let me stand up.
I think one of the things you both are talking about with that, like, we need a pause, is because there's something about that learned behavior about saying something immediately, you know, to calm everything down, because we've been told that's our role. So that idea of, I don't have to say something immediately. Like, I can take that breath and do nothing for a minute, you know?
So true. So true.
I don't know if it's just learned behavior. I think that it's our survival instinct, that it comes, I don't think necessarily that we've learned to respond fast. I think when we feel threatened, we do respond fast. It's like an automatic protection that comes up, and we have to learn to slow that down and not let it come out of our mouth, because the feeling is so intense when we feel attacked and we feel like our survival is being threatened.
Yeah.
So we have to really learn to, okay, that feeling, and just take a breath. And
yeah, I think it's both. I think it's both. And I think, you know, the primal survival instinct is going to be harder, you know, and the learned instinct is still going to be hard, but there, you know, it's just about, okay, how can we got to remember to slow down, take that pause. You'll be able to get back in it. We just need to, know, what's our goal here. And our goal for all of you is for you to have confidence, for you to be able to own your worth, not to have to prove your worth, and for you to step into that world every day, all day long, with a grounded, powerful strength. That's going to take a lot of mindfulness. It takes a lot of courage. It gets easier and easier the more you do it. It also gets easier and easier the more other women support it. And I feel like we are on a trajectory of women, doing this and supporting one another more and more. So, all right. Wow. So a lot from this debate. A lot of things came up. I think it's great that it did come up from this debate, because what we saw in the debate is what we are dealing with every day and we see every day in our lives. So it's a great teaching point and jumping off point for us. So let's talk a little bit about the challenge. So what is the challenge this week for women? Who wants to take it? First off, for women, we want you to observe all the ways, the inconsistent messages you send. So you're smiling when you're really mad. You are over accommodating when somebody's treating you poorly. We want you to, all the things that we saw play out with the moderator and Kamala in this debate, that you naturally do. We want you to observe them, watch, slow it down, that move to like make people like you and to make it nice and to smooth it out and to not be a bitch or not be seen as angry or all that. Notice it with your wives, your husbands, your children, your friends, your bosses, your employees, your coworkers. So first we want you to notice that. And then what we want you to do is to start stepping in. What I would say, start with the lowest risk situations and be honest with them. So if somebody is interrupting you and you catch yourself smiling, stop smiling, right? And in that moment, if you can say, I'm speaking, right? Can you give me a moment? Or can you let me finish what I was saying, please, right? And if they don't, remember, you're going to ramp it up a little bit. The first one, you can be very, look, just matter of fact, maybe that, we all jump in, no big deal. But the next time, be like, that's the second time. I'm asking you to stop interrupting me, right? And you get a little more serious. So lowest risk people, lowest risk situations, start to step in. Men, the challenge for men this week, Do you, Arlene? You want to take that one?
Well, I think what we talked about was the idea that men need to also be aware of when they are interrupting, when they are trying to be intimidating, when they're just trying to get their way, and notice the entitlement they have about that like I get to, or I get to be this. And so for them, as Arlene always says, first be aware and then
My thing.
and be aware on that, be aware how the women around you are like
right,
kowtowing to you,
reacting.
Yes.
Yeah. And then check yourself, you know, even if a woman doesn't find her voice, you're responsible to check yourself on your side of the fence and go, I don't know that that was really the right thing, the best thing to say, or a good thing to say, or, oh, I notice I'm interrupting you, you know, like take accountability for the behavior that has silenced the women around you.
And notice when you want to win, regardless of the cost.
Yeah. All right, love it. Well, everybody, there's our take on the great debate. You know, as always, we would love it to hear feedback. Let us know. Try some of these things, what works, what didn't work, what questions you have, and put them in the comments section, and we'll answer. Pass it along to friends and family if you think this was helpful, and we will catch you on the other side. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you again for joining us this week, and always remember, you have the power to change the world for women by changing how you walk in it. I challenge you to choose one way to stand in your grounded, powerful strength this week and be part of the ripple of change.